Thanks, Nate. Welcome to Rethink 2025. We're happy to have everyone here for this year's event. When we started Synadia over 7 years ago, we bet on several things. We bet on distributed systems continuing to evolve and have more moving parts. We bet on the parts continually changing to be very dynamic and agile, where things come and go and move around. And we bet that the systems will be stretched out across regions, across cloud providers, and out to edge locations. And we bet on the fact that folks in this new era would prioritize decreasing latency to access data and services. Our approach is very different, as Justina pointed out. We started with intelligent connectivity, then moved to data, and then workloads. This is the exact opposite of most approaches that start with workloads, add in networking to access some data, and then layer security on top. For connectivity, we introduce a very few powerful concepts: location independence, end-to-end communications, and pull and push patterns. For data, we built on the connectivity layer, providing synchronous and asynchronous replication and materialized views. And then finally, we looked at workloads. Built on top of the previous two layers, they're federation-free. They have no requirement for perimeter-based security models. So this is not a competitor to things like Kubernetes or OpenStack or Docker or any of that stuff. And it's important to note that what Synadia is doing is that we're changing the how, not the what, meaning that systems are being designed with microservices and key values and object stores, but the how, the Synadia advantage here, is what is really different. Synadia's tech stack, based on the NATS ecosystem, provides some very powerful use cases. For example, Synadia Cloud, our multi-tenant SaaS, does over 100 billion messages per day. And it's probably the cheapest way to access multiple regions, multiple cloud providers, and extend out to the edge. Within the financial systems within the EU, where the requirements around single region but multiple cloud requirements, Synadia was able to provide access to both Azure, GCP, and AWS in single regions for many of our financial customers. This highlights the flexibility of the system topology that Synadia and NATS can offer. Global microservices at scale, any region, any cloud, any edge. The key here is there's no DNS tricks are needed, no load balancers or TSLBs, no API gateways, WAFs, no service meshes required. And then fleet management. Leaf nodes are a superpower within the NATS ecosystem. They provide a logical and secure separation between organizations, companies, partners, etc. The extensive server topologies for cloud and edge that Synadia allows provides powerful constructs for secure access to fleet management situations. We have digital twins and mirrors. We have source muxing and demuxing, which is the way of saying we can collect data from all of the fleet items and collect them within the cloud for quick observability. We can also demux those, right? So in other words, we can pull things out of those mux streams and key value stores in order to demux those things on the cloud side. And this can be applicable to cars, factories, distribution centers, remote charging stations, satellites, and even medical devices. Ongoing work on massive observer populations within this effort from Synadia, for example, key values with over 100,000 or 1 million observers, is something that is unique to what Synadia can do. Traditional consumers are very heavyweight and can clog systems down. Yet Synadia's approach in this area and our innovation here allow things like republish and direct gets with global sequencing to allow this type of observability. Synadia allows companies to deliver innovation faster across cloud and edge. Let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room these days, AI. For Synadia, we started with a lot of AI startups in terms of AI data generation and collection from the edge, meaning that they didn't want their applications that were generating the data to be concerned about getting the data to the cloud for training purposes or quality assurance purposes, things like that. With Synadia and the NATS ecosystem, data is stored locally, and then the NATS system takes over and mirrors that into the cloud. It self-heals itself, it puts itself back together such that the applications don't have to worry about it and they can get back to what they're designed to do. We then started seeing customers of ours start to use east-west signaling for things like anomalies, where they wanted to know if an anomaly in one location was being replicated in other locations. Then things started to get really, really interesting. About 18 months to 2 years ago, we really believed that the inference ecosystem would develop into its own tech stack and that Synadia could help. from prompt augmentation to RAG and RAG plus, right? We felt that location independent access to this data was extremely critical, especially not knowing where things might be, as well as the ability for us to do push versus pull. And what I mean by that is that if prompt augmentation, let's say, was trying to pull data all the time to augment a prompt, if all of a sudden the inference layer was running at 1 million requests per second, the RAG layer would have to also support 1 million messages per second, right? Or 1 million request replies per second. With Synadia, we allow systems to be either push or pull. That's kind of one of our superpowers at the connectivity layer, meaning that I could simply say, hey, whenever this data changes, just let all of the inference endpoints know so that they don't even have to ask. They actually have the data locally for them. Um, when we moved on from prompt augmentation and looked at the model traversal, we believed that there would be multiple models, traversal and flow. For example, in a connected car, right, we might be talking to an LLM within the cloud, which might access multiple models for different types of operations that might be on the vehicle, might be on cell towers, might be in the cloud. You don't necessarily know where they are. And now in 2025, agentic AI and the promise of what this is going to bring, it has similar challenges that Synadia is extremely well suited to solve for the largest AI companies in the world. The same things, right? Location independence, end-to-end communications, agile and dynamic systems that are secure across all topologies. We also started to see a manufacturing renaissance, and we'll hear more about this later within the conference. But combining information flows with low-level device information from MQTT devices, for example, allows this notion of manufacturing to combine both low-level data processing at the device level with higher-level information processing. Not to mention the fact that the physical embodiment of AI that is rapidly progressing beyond anything that I thought was going to happen within the next couple of years is, again, kind of keeping the renaissance moving forward. And finally, fleet management and edge. As we discussed earlier, from factories to cars to cafes to toothbrushes, everything securely connected, everything dynamic and agile, everything observable, from tens to hundreds of thousands to millions of managed items within a fleet. In closing, no time in history is like the present. The amount of progress and innovation is at an all-time high. The technology ecosystem is moving at a faster pace than I've ever seen in my career. As much as the rules shifted and changed as we made a shift from data center to cloud and cloud native, there'll be an even bigger transition to edge native. Longtime Snatch users will want to explore workloads and connectors, make sure you're getting the most out of microservices, KV streams, and object stores. For new users, now is a great time to explore what Synadia has to offer and design a modern edge-aware system that innovates and can be delivered in days, not months or years. There is a massive and dramatic shift in distributed systems design caused by edge and now AI. And Synadia's technologies can help companies and individuals deliver innovation faster. Thanks again for joining us. I truly hope you enjoy the conference. Thanks everyone for both joining and staying. We know your time and your attention is very valuable, so we really appreciate it. Synadia definitely is in the mix, as we all are, with distributed systems and how fast they're evolving due to a rapidly changing ecosystem, right? It's the fastest changing ecosystem that I've ever seen, from Edge, which Synadia was kind of betting on early on in our company career as we started about 7 years ago. But of course, Edge is now being amplified to a whole different degree with AI, either data collection or AI inference that we kind of talked about and showed some demos. And through our customers and partners, we're learning so much more about the needs of what these new distributed systems have to be able to perform. And specifically, it's not necessarily that you're going to be designing a distributed system on a whiteboard that looks radically different with Synadia technology, right? It's not about the what, it's more about the how. But when you go from saying, I want to deploy, a system into a single region and a single cloud provider like Amazon or Google or Azure to multiple regions, multiple cloud providers. And again, where Synadia really starts to shine is out to edge locations, whether it's CDNs like our partner at Akamai or your own edge locations that a lot of the speakers today spoke about, whether it's factories or cafes or stores, distribution centers, connected cars, satellites, medical devices, toothbrushes. All of those are use cases that we see with our customers and partners and users every single day. And so a big hats off to everyone in the ecosystem that helps drive Synadia and helps drive the Nats ecosystem itself to be better and try to, as Byron said, keep ahead of everyone, or keep ahead of the curve, so to speak, which is not as easy as it used to be, as things are moving so fast. But thank you, everyone. And if there's any questions, please feel free to shoot them our way. We're happy to answer some now, or we can do them async later, but really appreciate everyone's time. So thank you.
You have more details about the Schema registry.
Well, I think for those that know the Nats ecosystem, right? Nats was started as a payload agnostic system, right? And as Byron pointed out, we're starting to go up the stack in terms of governance and registries and schemas and things like that. And so there's obviously advisory type and there's enforcement type of schema implementations, and the team has been actively looking across our users and customers and partners, but also out into the broader ecosystem of what actually is resonating with people. But we definitely understand the need. It's how do we actually introduce it into the Nats ecosystem in both a Nats, but also a very familiar way for users. So, and you're going to hear a lot more throughout the balance of the first half of this year on exactly what our plans are and how those things are rolling out.
We had Petro asking about fleet management, regarding fleet management without Kubernetes operators. What about official Ansible roles for Nats?
Well, I mean, I definitely think there's a case to be made for integration with existing technologies like Kubernetes and Ansible. What we've started to see and why you see things like Next, which is workloads. Workloads is kind of the more formal name, but Next is the technical product name underneath the covers, is that these technologies in a Nats ecosystem are federation free. They don't require perimeter-based security models, and right. And so we're not trying to compete necessarily with Kubernetes or Docker or OpenStack, things like that. But when you start to look at some of the things that Jordan showed in his demo, right, deploying onto edge locations like Raspberry Pis and air gap things and moving things around in between all of these different scenarios, you start to see where clustered or federated types of implementations like Kubernetes that a lot of times require, API gateways and perimeter security models might start to feel heavy. And we've had a bunch of questions about how are we going to make this lighter weight for edge locations, easier configuration to set these things up. That's all kind of encompassed in this fleet management initiative that has been going on for about a year and a half, within Synadia. And so we believe that, on the cloud side and the integration side, potentially on the edge side, integration with these types of technologies is important. But we also are looking at things like how do you set up a system very quickly to deploy, dynamically but secure workloads, meaning digitally signed and secured onto an ECU in a connected car or into a sensor inside of a factory. Those are the types of things that we're really starting to push on. And in those cases, we don't necessarily feel that the current technologies that a lot of times are associated with cloud native type of stuff might be the right fit for those. And so we're trying to push the envelope there about what we feel would be the right answers there, but it's never going to be an or situation, right? It can always be an and or type of scenario.
Yeah, and just double down on that. I think, with the I said this before, but it's like the whole concept of you know, an edge that's defined from a provider versus a customer defined edge or a user defined edge, and being able to, like, those are not mutually exclusive, right? So we can still, be able to have instances and, some edge be able to be deployed in those environments, and then you need to extend it. And this was, one of the core visions that when Leaf Nodes was even introduced, that was one of the visionary points of being able to extend arbitrarily. Next, and subsequently connectors, because it builds on that, has that ability to satisfy that same need. And so it inherits all the same properties that Nats has to offer with the security model, as Derek mentioned, and the adaptability to be able to kind of create the topology that you need, which is really powerful.
Yeah, and I think, to Byron's point, the theme of what we try to do is we try to architect systems and technologies that do not box in our ecosystem, our users, our customers,
Yep.
our partners. Now, we're not perfect by any stretch, but if you notice the way Leaf Node started this kind of trend for us, in combination with the fact that, again, the landscape that's underneath of us is evolving so fast. Us saying everything you need from us, you'd have to rely on us to provide, to build. And so Leaf Nodes, meaning you can extend something like Synadia Cloud or your own deployment anywhere across the globe. Again, to Byron's point, you'll be able to run your own Next engines, in addition to Synadia Cloud or your managed platform, offering. Connectors are the same way. And so there's a theme that we're trying to make sure that we architect things correctly such that our users and the ecosystem and our customers and partners aren't boxed in, right? They can extend. And to a lot of questions that were coming around connectors from Don's presentation around, is Wombat Benthos and stuff. The key point that I think we want to make sure people understand is that the architecture that Don and the team put together, which is really, really impressive underneath the covers, is that the runtimes are pluggable. And so, yes, Wombat, which is a pre-fork of Benthos before the acquisition, is definitely there. And we get a lot of value at inheriting all of the work that Ash and of course the ecosystem prior to Red Panda's acquisition did. But we also immediately had customers that were like, well, we need very, very high performance characteristics around something like that. And so the notion of that pluggable runtime, even within the connector ecosystem, is again an extension of, we don't want to box in our users, right? We want to provide something that allows them to extend and integrate on their own without having to rely on Synadia or the broader Nets ecosystem.
Right, and I think we're getting up close to the 6 p.m. Eastern mark. Byron, Derek, do either of you have some closing thoughts? Anything to finish us out for the day?
No, just a huge thank you to the ecosystem. This has been such an amazing journey over the last 7 years. And for those that don't know, Nats is, I think, over 12 years old now, I think. I think Byron, I think, mentioned it. It came from very, very humble beginnings, but I think it was trying to solve a very, very specific pain point. And Synadia continues on that journey of, we have, in my opinion, some of the best customers in the world. We aren't allowed to talk a lot about all of our customers, but internal to Synadia, whenever we're, feeling a little down or whatever, we just kind of look at all of the people that depend on Synadia and depend on the NATS technologies for critical infrastructure, business level operations every single day, including the world's largest company, which did a bunch of really cool announcements just on Tuesday that are all being powered by NATS underneath the covers. That's extremely exciting, humbling, but also, keeps us on our toes, so to speak. So a huge thanks to everyone who has participated and given back to the ecosystem. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I think next year we might actually try to do one of these in person. So if you have any feedback of if that's something that you would like to see, I think we did have a poll that went flying by. But we might be getting to that point where we might be able to pull off something in person. So again, huge thanks to everyone who's been um, on the conference, and stayed all this time. Thank you very, very much.